Hey everybody, it's Monday, May 3rd. It is about 11:20, and this is the day I've been waiting on, guys. Today is the day I get to ride Velocicoaster for the very first time. The team members have had a couple of soft opening preview days. Yesterday, Sunday, May 2nd, was the very first day of passholder previews. Today's the second day, goes through Wednesday. The coaster opens officially on June 10th. I can't tell you how excited I've been watching this and waiting and waiting and waiting. But today is the day that I finally get to get on. Come on. As we come under the final bridge into IOA, you can see across the bay, the Jurassic Park Discovery Center. That's where we're heading. As soon as you come into the park, you'll see a sign that says the UOAP Annual Pass Access to Registered Event sign to the left. So we're gonna go towards Superhero Island, past the Hulk, and go around and get checked in for our ride time. Everything that I've read online has said that at the most, this has been like an hour-long wait once you get checked in and get into line. Most people are saying it's pretty much a straight walk on. 20 minutes to walk through the queue, drop your stuff in a locker, and get on the ride. I don't think I'm gonna be riding any water rides today, but let me tell you, man, that looks good, because it's a warm one today. So this is the bridge that connects from Harry Potter over to Jurassic Park. It's currently closed, but under this bridge, or as you cross this bridge, you go right underneath the tracks, which is a really awesome vantage point. How long we've waited, guys. As you walk up into this area, I don't know how much of this eventually will become queue, because once it opens, I mean, I imagine they're gonna have queue going everywhere. But this area right now is kind of open. I think once the actual ride opens on June 10th, that you will not be able to walk in this area. So right behind us is the Jurassic Park Discovery Center. So you can go in there, and they have large lockers in case you need large lockers, but they also have the smaller lockers available right before you get on the ride. So like for instance today, let me show you what I've got. I've got this little bag that's got my camera gear in it, and then I've got a little thing that holds my refillable mug. So this will fit in the small locker, so I don't need to get a big locker. But if you did need to get a big locker, you can go right here to the Jurassic Park Discovery Center, and in the bottom level right here where you can get some big lockers, and I believe those are for rent. There's a space over here next to the test seat where you can test out the size of the locker. What a cool vantage point from here. Got to figure out a way to wrap my head around that, because it's a lot to unpack. No, let me think about it. I got to think about this for a minute. It's a lot to try and describe. I took a few minutes to think about what it was about the coaster that I liked or maybe didn't like as much. Oh, by the way, I stopped at Green Eggs and Ham and got some pizza tots. I don't know if you've ever had pizza tots, but tots with pizza stuff on top. What's not to like, right? So don't mind me while we eat and talk. It's hard to dissect a coaster that's that intricate and that complex in a single riding. So I'm gonna do the best I can based on that. It was just so fast, and it's the first time, and there's nothing to compare it to, and trying to remember it all and put into words the feelings that accompanied the ride. So let's start first and foremost with the restraint and when you first climb into the seat. So I will say that it's extremely comfortable. I'm a big guy. I didn't have any problem with the seat. There's plenty of room width-wise. When you bring the restraints down on top of you, if you're like me and you got a bit of a gut, you know, it does encroach a little bit, but the top half of you feels really good and the width feels really good. So don't be scared of what the restraint's gonna feel like, because it feels great. So leaving out of the station, you go into a first kind of, we call it a show scene, where it's the raptors in the cages. And during the day, I did notice that it was a little difficult to see. I don't know if once the ride is completely up and going, whether or not they'll turn up maybe the brightness on those monitors, because it's supposed to be raptors in their cages, and they're sort of rattling the cages, and you can see the raptors. And you can see them, just as it is now. I think you'll be able to see it much better at night. I think it'll be a much different ride at night. The initial launch, intense but not overwhelming. I compared to things like that last launch on Hagrid's, or the first big launch on Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens. So the very first maneuver that you enter into, if I recall correctly, it's sort of an overbank that goes to a loop. And this is where maybe I can find some fault in the coaster, and I think it's a positive and a negative all at the same time, is that the maneuvers in the first half of the coaster are just back to back to back to back to back. And the footprint of that first portion that takes place in the Raptor paddock is just so compact. I mean, in terms of square footage, that it seems like you're getting slapped in the face over and over and over, because there's no time to process what's going on. And that's good and bad. But what is so intense about any of that ride, or what I think is the most intense feature of that ride, is the sheer amount of airtime that you get. That first section, I felt like I was rarely sitting in my seat. I felt like I was out of my seat constantly. Now, it didn't feel unsecure, because I felt like I was securely in my seat. I had my hands up the entire time because I wanted to get the full experience. Never did I ever, for one even inkling, think that I was going to fall out of my seat. Nor is anybody going to fall out of their seat. Not having that restraint on the top half of our bodies like we're used to, it takes a second to get used to. Once you hit the second launch, which is the launch that takes you over the top half, you hit the launch, and by the time you realize what's going on, you're on the top of the top half. And the view for 1.5 seconds is beautiful. You can see everything. And then the second half of that coaster is very different than the first half. The first half is very compact, very feature rich, just one after the other. The second half still has element after element after element, but it's longer straightaways, it's big wide bank turns instead of sharp turns and ups and downs. The portion where you go upside down and you travel 100 yards upside down is very, very cool feeling. I've never felt like anything like that before. That's amazing. And then that barrel roll over the water, it is brilliant. I mean, it's the most intense or element I've ever felt on a roller coaster, because you're that low to the water, and when you start to make that turn, I mean, it for a second feels like your head's gonna dunk underwater, and you get a lot of airtime on that one, and it's just a fantastic way to end the ride, because that's the culmination of that entire ride is just brilliant. Now, some things maybe I would have changed. It feels like, for all of those things and all of the theming, and it's beautiful, beautifully themed, rockwork, trees, foliage, once you actually hit the coaster, there's not much. You have some statues of the raptors inside the raptor paddock, and you're going by them fast, so you don't really get to, they could spend all this money on animatronics that would be broken half the time, and it'd probably be a big waste of money. They were smart to go with the statues that they don't have to fix. It's one less thing that's going to cause the ride to go down. But it does feel a little flat. And I guess I'm basing this on Hagrid's, because that's the thing that I have to compare it with. I mean, it's his next door neighbor. And Hagrid's is just so rich in its detailing and theming. And this one just doesn't really have that. I don't think that I can give a final judgment on Velocicoaster today based on one ride. Because first off, I know my impression is going to change. And my love for it's going to grow as I ride it more and more. But after only riding once, if I had to give it a ranking based on my favorite coasters in Central Florida, where would I rank it? I think right now it would be number 3. Number 3, Velocicoaster. Number 2, Hagrid's. Number 1, Mako. Mako still wins just for sheer awesome. If I could make Mako and Hagrid's a tie for number 1, I probably would, but for very different reasons. And this one falls behind both of those 2 for me. So again, I think maybe this will change over time, and as I ride and sort of become more familiar, because I've ridden both of those other coasters, I don't know, dozens and dozens of times now, and I've only ridden Velocicoaster once. So again, I reserve the right to change my mind. But right now, great coaster. Can't wait to do it again. Can't wait to do it 100 more times. Intensity-wise, I would put it somewhere between, in terms of coasters at Universal, I would definitely say it's more intense than Hagrid's. Probably on par with Hulk as far as intensity goes. Maybe a little less intense, but pretty close. And then as far as airtime, I'd give it that the number 1 coaster I've ever ridden. But as far as everything else, it's still got some work to do. Well, there you have it. Velocicoaster in the books. Plenty more rides to come in the future. I'm so grateful to Universal for giving pass holders this opportunity. I hope to come back and ride some more during some soft openings that occur before the official opening. But if not, then this one ride was worth it. Can't say enough about what a good coaster it is and how people are going to love it once it opens to everybody. From Universal's Islands of Adventure, if never lost, then never found. So go get lost.